So after Douglas's vision, I thought, no, we have to ask the land permission, and I'm not staying if you don't get permission. So we asked our friends at the time who were on the same journey to do a medicine circle here. Again, it was quite volatile. I was sitting in the position of karma, and Douglas was sitting in the position of the dream. And behind me was huge activity. And Douglas was looking at that because he could see it, and he could see the activity. And the karma of the land was so intense that one of the women sitting in another corner of the medicine wheel came to sit by me. She felt that corner needed to be strengthened. But at the end of the circle, the shaman, she said, you already have permission. They know what you want to do, but you just have to make sure that you stay in connection with them. Right? And we made an agreement to leave a section of the land completely undisturbed, not build on it or do anything on it, leave it for them.
Welcome to the Endless Possibilities Podcast, where the journey of spiritual awakening and energy healing unfolds.
Hello and welcome to the Endless Possibilities Podcast. My name is Garrett and I'm very happy to be here today with you, the viewers and the listeners, and to be sharing another incredible conversation with two very remarkable people, Marlene and Douglas, French Mullen. Marlene and Douglas first built their home with sustainability, eco-living in mind. They planted over 3,500 deciduous trees under 5 acres. They started to clean their own water successfully with natural reed bed system, and then started to supplement their energy requirements with wind and solar energy. The name of their land is called Shleenabande, meaning the way of the goddess, and it's a sustainable living project. And they run yoga retreats, psychoanalysis, sustainable living education, group work facilities and accommodation, shamanic ceremonies, sweat lodges. They host events, and yeah, they're very, very amazing to work with. I've done maybe 10 retreats with them now at this stage, and I'm just delighted to have them here with me today and for them to share the story of how that piece of land came about. So now, Marlene and Douglas, warm welcome to the podcast today. Thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you, Garrett, for inviting us.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued about learning the story, your story and Shleenabande's story and how it
Yes,
all started.
yes, yes, yes. It started a very long time ago, actually. My Douglas and I wanted to live environmentally friendly, but my wake-up call came very, very early in my life when I was about 5 or 6. When in Belgium, because I'm from Belgium, you could still fish in the rivers, right? So there were the small rivers close to where we were living, and you could get your net and you could go out and catch something, right? Which was a great pastime at the time. And in around that same, like by the time I was 8, say, right, that was impossible because there was the time of the great sort of blooming time after the Second World War, and not that I was born around the Second World War, but it was the sort of real economic bloom of that time, and people were getting washing machines, right? There was hundreds of washing machines going into those rivers with suits that high, right?
Wow.
So all the fish dead, and I remember thinking, what's wrong with the adults? Right? Well, can't they see that this is wrong? Right? But that was the first wake-up call. And then nothing happened until when I was 18, when I had to start writing my dissertation and I wrote it on the report of the Club of Rome, which was the first computer report which came out at a time in the 70s on the destruction of the planet and the depletion of our natural resources. And that did it, right? That went, wow. So we can do it differently. It doesn't have to be done this way. And then I met Douglas at the same time. And we, thank God, think alike. So Douglas was immediately involved as well.
And how did you guys meet? Because I know, Douglas, you're from Dublin, and Marlene, you were in Belgium. So how did that come together?
wedding, but not ours.
Yeah. Yeah. I met a friend of Douglas in Spain. And at the same time, Douglas's family were in Spain as well, but Douglas wasn't. And the next year, this Irishman invited me to his wedding. And Douglas was best man at that wedding. So that was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you moved over shortly?
Well, no, for a long time, I was going backwards and forwards to Belgium, chasing him. And he was playing hard to catch.
Very slow, right?
And so eventually we got married in 1983. In the beginning of 1983, but the interest was the same. It wasn't like, oh, then you get surprised that you have similar interests. So that was already there.
Okay. Douglas, I know our paths have kind of crossed in the past, because I know you were running a business in Dunleary for a long time, and I had a shop around the corner.
That's right.
I never knew, and you used to walk by, and I think your daughter Jane, she actually came into my store a number of times, and I spoke to her. I never made the connection until I was up there and I started to see the vans. So were you running that business at the time, Douglas?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, since late 1970s.
Oh wow.
When I started. Yeah.
Okay. And then how did the land come about?
Well, Marlene had this idea that this is what she wanted to buy, and she, in the way she does things, she just jumped at it and said, right, I'm going to go and do it now. And off she went. She found one spot which we couldn't buy, and then this spot came up. We looked at it. She went with my mother and didn't like it either, because it was a dark, damp, dull day and the place was in the clouds. And then we went back, 2 weeks later, had a look at it again, and it was a totally different feel about it. So we rang the auctioneer, and the auctioneer, after a month, still hadn't come back to us. I was driving up the road, and there was a second auctioneer sign up. So I rang that auctioneer, and she said to me, put in a price and you'll get it. So I told Marlene, we did that, and we had it bought the next day.
And it was just sheep fields, right, at the time?
Yeah, it was a mushroom farm.
Okay.
That's why you've got all the concrete out here in the yard. It was an old mushroom farm, and that's where the tents, the mushroom tunnels were. But there was nothing else. There was no trees. One big tree down the end of the field, and that was it.
And then you guys built, I believe, the hot tub first.
No, we built what is now the yoga chalet. We built that first and lived in that.
Actually, correction. We built a water cleaning system first.
Oh, without anything. Yeah, that's true.
And was there anything, water stream on the land or anything like that? No.
Nothing. There was a well, but that was for the mushroom farm. But the mushroom farm was bankrupt. There was bags of mushroom compost all over the place, which we spent the first year collecting bags, didn't we? And disposing of all those. But other than that, no, there was nothing here. Absolutely nothing.
Okay, and tell me then, like, how did the idea of Shlina Bande, like, so you built the yoga chalet first, and I know you lived in that, right?
Yeah.
That was your home.
Yeah.
And there was never any intention of having a retreat center. It was just
no.
You just wanted to live in a kind of an eco-friendly environment.
Yeah, and we were going to build a house, but it was going to be, over a few years. And then we were told that we had to have the house up to the eaves level, up to roof level, before the planning permission ran out. So we did that, and we were just going to slowly carry on after that. And Marlene had people who wanted to rent the yoga chalet office, which was our house. So we had to move out of that on weekends and let the people do whatever they were doing in the yoga chalet, and then move back in again on Sunday night, which was not very convenient to say the least. But it was turned out to be quite a good space to work in, you see. That was the problem, which wasn't the original idea.
Okay. And I know a lot of the people came, they started to come, right? People, you had musicians coming, all sorts of different people coming by because of the way you were trying to live. And were they trying to learn that way of living?
Well, when we arrived, Douglas is correct about it. It was just a field, and that was great. But we were hoping at the time that it would be a little bit more fertile, that the land would be a little bit more fertile. But because it's so high up, it's not that great, the soil. But the chalet wasn't the first thing we bought, and we bought it built, and we built it for very specific reasons. The first thing we put in actually was the water cleaning system. So before anything was here, one of these coincidences that I was talking about with you before we started was that we were still living in Delgany Park, and all of a sudden a newspaper article is in the Post talking about water cleaning. But I didn't know who. It was a Belgian article, and nobody, no name, nothing. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. That's environmentally friendly. I want to know how to do that. So the two of us went to Belgium.
Hi guys, I hope you are enjoying the interview with Douglas and Marlene. This is just a quick request to those who aren't already subscribed. If you would like to help out this channel, it's free. You don't have to pay anything. All you have to do is subscribe. By you subscribing, it helps YouTube push our show out to new audiences through the algorithm. And it's the best thing you can do to help us out. So please hit subscribe. Maybe if you're enjoying the conversation, drop us a message down below or hit like. Thank you so much. Now back to the show with Douglas and Marlene.
To meet a guy who did that, who cleaned water naturally with plants and with nothing, no electricity, nothing. So just a completely organic system to clean water, to drinking water quality. Like not just a little bit clean, perfectly clean. So we went to meet him, and he has been an incredible source of inspiration because he was on the same track. So we put that in first. And the chalet just didn't turn up like that because Douglas, when we bought the land, there was nothing here, like absolutely nothing here. So no fence, nothing. And I just wanted to put up the fence to say we're here. And Douglas said, absolutely not. This is not Germany. So he didn't want to put up the fence. So anyway, no fence. And then when we would come here to try and build the chalet, we'd find that just plant some potatoes and onions. That was the first thing. We wanted to plant some potatoes and onions here, and we did that. But when it was harvesting time, they were all gone. They were harvested for us, so they were all stolen. And a newspaper article came into the New Wicklow People to say theft of the onions and the potatoes.
And where were they disappearing to, Marlene? Was it a local or was it animals?
I have no idea. No idea. I don't know. I don't know where these potatoes and onions went, but they went. Right. So that was the time that Douglas agreed that maybe a fence wasn't such a bad idea, right?
Or maybe it was the fairies of the forest, mate. Yeah.
maybe I don't know. Anyway, these potatoes they went, and the onions as well. And then the thing was that there was a lot of disturbance on the land, so we would arrive here, and some people would have stolen a car, driven the car up here, set fire to it, and then disappear again. So we'd arrive. A burnt out car on the concrete, and that happened a few times. So that was very disturbing. And then there was the yoga chalet that we eventually built, not because we wanted to wait for the house to be built, but because there was so much disturbance, we couldn't. We had to establish a presence here. Right. So Douglas started to build, and the yoga chalet, by the way, is entirely his idea because it has that funny shape, because he found it in a book. Didn't you find that in a book? Anyway,
Yeah.
Yes. Well, anyway, we started building the yoga chalet out of necessity to have a presence here. And we were doing it ourselves because there was, at the time, all our money was going to go into the house. So it had to be a sort of a temporary thing, but it was very well built all the same. And
Still there.
it's still there, yes.
Yeah.
But it had a funny shape, and it was a very good location there anyway, and out of the way. It's out of the way. It was going to be out of the way of the main house. But then one day we arrive here, and that's where the whole thing really took off. It had Velux windows. And one day the Velux windows disappeared. They were butchered out of the building. And that's when the actual spiritual journey started, because that was very shocking, right? Because then I decided that I didn't want to live here anymore, that it was too disturbed, too much, too volatile. And we actually did put the land on the market again, but by that stage we had the fence up, plus the price of the land, and we didn't even get an offer. There was just no interest. So there was zero, zero, zero interest in this place after the fence was up. And because the yoga chalet was very damaged, Douglas decided to stay there during the night to see who was doing this, right? So he stayed there with our dog at the time, Rebecca, and
German Shepherd.
the German Shepherd, and his shotgun. So he was lying in the yoga chalet that was totally damaged, and he had a vision. Do you want to tell your vision?
Well, yeah, I suppose a procession came by from a funeral. And I remember at the time waking up thinking, what's going on here? And it was probably an 18th century procession by looking at the people. Now, they weren't looking at me, they just walked by me, passed down the pathway, heading towards the old church down at the back of this place. And myself and Rebecca saw it too. Definitely felt that there was something going on. And I didn't tell anybody about them for a while. I mentioned it to Marlene, but didn't actually tell anybody because I wasn't quite sure whether it was true or not. And I was having a walk up the forestry then a few weeks later, and I met the local farmer up there, and he was chatting to me, and he said to me, "Do you ever notice anything at night time walking down there?" And I said, "Like, you mean funerals?" And he said, "Yes, that's exactly what I was talking about." And then I nearly choked because I realized he'd obviously seen something that I'd seen. And he then explained to me that this was a mass path. And it was very good that I hadn't actually built the yoga chalet on the mass path. The mass path went just past the edge of the chalet. So after that, we decided, right, we will keep that mass path open. And you can still walk that mass path today from one corner of the land all the way down to the church. And so you'll see little footpaths all the way down the field. That's the original mass path. And if in years gone by, if you sat in the hot tub, there was two big ash trees behind you. You often used to see a couple of women standing there just watching us.
Wow.
Well, he saw them. I've never seen them. But yeah, you have to have that quality. But that wasn't, I just want to add something to this, what Douglas said, right? Because of what he saw, I said to him, I said, look, we have to ask permission on the land. We have to ask the land permission to be here, because I can't handle this disturbance, right? Because not only was it the actual butchering of stuff, we couldn't get anything to ground itself here. Like anything we built blew away.
Yeah, the polytunnel disappeared regularly.
Yeah, regularly, yes.
The wind generator went up and down like a yo-yo.
Yes, it was extremely volatile. And so after Douglas's vision, I thought, no, we have to ask the land permission, and I'm not staying if we don't get permission. So we asked our friends at the time who were on the same journey to do a medicine circle here. So I stepped out where the house was going to be. We we were in the 8 directions of the Native American medicine wheel. And we just asked the land permission. And one of the friends is a medium, and she was, or a shaman, I should say, and she's incredibly sensitive to what was going on. So she said at the time when we were doing the medicine wheel and asking permission, again it was quite volatile. I was sitting in the position of karma, and Douglas was sitting in the position of the dream, and behind me was huge activity, and Douglas was looking at that because he could see it, and he could see the activity. I didn't, and I wouldn't have, but I was aware of it. And it was the karma of the land was so intense that one of the women sitting in another corner of the medicine wheel came to sit by me. She felt that corner needed to be strengthened. So Douglas was physically not getting well. Nearly. And but at the end of the circle, when we were talking to our friend, the shaman, she said, you already, no, it wasn't at the end of the circle, it was during the circle. She said, you already have permission. They know what you want to do, but you just have to make sure that you stay in connection with them. Right? So you can't lose your connection with them. And we made an agreement. We made an agreement to keep the mass path open, to leave a section of the land completely undisturbed, not build on it or do anything on it, not still look after it, but not do something, leave it for them. And there was another thing that we agreed, but I've forgotten what that was. To include them in our medicine ceremonies. That's what's the other thing that we promised. So, touch wood, all of those years we've done that.
Every time we did the sweat lodge, we called them in.
We called them in, so we honored their presence here. And this is the miracle, right? Since then, so you have all this volatile stuff. Since then, nothing, no volatile anything, nothing.
So
Only support.
it's really amazing. There was a brother somebody told me to look at, an Irish guy, and I was listening to one of his podcasts, and he's talking about fairies all around Ireland, the fairy rings, and I'm going to try and interview him, but he was saying that like people will build on certain parts of land in the wrong place, and these non-physical beings, entities, they will really get irate, and they will become mischievous. They'll cause all sorts of problems until you actually make peace with them and explain what you're going to do. Yeah.
This is what definitely happened here. And in those days, I was, and Douglas as well, if I might, we were ignorant on that. Like we did the medicine circle out of desperation, not because we were so spiritually enlightened. It was like, wow, there is something going on here. We need to address it from a different way, and it worked. It is a complete miracle. Since then, only support, and together with that, lots of people came. We repaired the yoga chalet, and then people started asking. It wasn't even finished when people started asking, "Can we use it for this spiritual thing? Can we use it for dance? Can we use it for shamanism?" And as Douglas said, we had to move out of the chalet continuously to make room for other people to do their work. It was like we were supposed to do the work, but when there was work to be done, we had to get out of the way. So it was
we had to sleep in the garage.
Sleep in the garage to have the thing, because other people wanted to use it, and that has continued to date, right? So other people are using it, and we are doing the work. Now, I'm not complaining about that, but that is the quality of it. And we just wanted to live environmentally friendly, not have all these groups here, but they came.
They came, and I've been there. I don't know how many times now, and I noticed
Mhm.
like one of the things is like you almost give up your home to the group, right? Because some of them come in and actually stay in your home, right? You've got one
Yes.
room, and then you've got the attic space. So there's people actually walking around your living space, and you just give it over freely, just
Right now.
okay. There's a group at the moment.
Yeah, but that was even more, in the past, that was even more like now we have the coffee house, but in the past, people ate in the house. Yeah,
I've been there a
yeah,
number of times. We've had in the house, yeah, when
yes.
the weather's been not so great, and
So the house, when the house was actually built first, right, it wasn't dry. The plaster on the walls wasn't dry when the first group moved in. Not us, a group. Like it's like it's on like the universe had a plan. We are the executors of that
We
plan.
weren't the first to sleep in the house.
We weren't the first to sleep in the house.
mm,
Right? It's weird.
it's almost like you're like the caretakers, right? You just
Yes. Yes. Yes.
yeah, and because again, I've had a kind of a drawing to work with you guys, and also
Mm.
lived there for a number of months in the cottage. So you have
Mm.
on your property a 400-plus-year-old thatched cottage, really, really beautiful
Yeah.
that you renovated. And I know from living there, I learned the story of the land, that there's a across from the cottage, there's a place called Slaughter Hill where there was a number of Irish rebels executed by British soldiers. The church, the ruins of the church that's on the land, was burnt
Yeah.
down. There's a lot of history.
A lot of history. And that cottage where you were in witnessed all of that.
Yeah, I mean that cottage. I remember my first night looking out the bedroom window and actually been able to read the names on the graves.
Yeah.
Yeah, fabulous. So, okay, so do you want to tell me then how everything started to develop, right? Because a pond went in the hot tub. Yeah,
Well, the water cleaning system was there first, right? So that was the most important thing. It's also the thing that I'm most proud of, that we collect the rainwater, but the water that we pollute, we clean, right? So when it goes back into the earth, it's actually
so that's the grey
clean.
water coming from the showers
The
and
grey water from the showers, but also from the toilets,
oh,
everything.
okay, okay.
Yeah. So, and and that's another miracle, right? So there's a few miracles here, but that is another miracle where where the water that goes through those plants in a particular way, in a very ingenious way, because the plants clean different the water goes through the roots of the plants.
Yeah.
Different microorganisms live at the roots of those different plants, and they do the different parts of the cleaning. So by the time it actually ends up into we have two ponds. In the first pond that we built, it's clean. So that's so amazing. That is so amazing. And the hot tub was there first.
Yeah,
So
it's on the small pond.
yeah, also before the chalet was there. So that's another very important feature of the place.
So I was right in saying the hot tub was there first.
The
Yeah,
hot tub
yeah.
was there.
And I
Yeah.
know it's such a great feature of Sliabh Bande, because from me doing the retreats there, I know how much everybody enjoys at the end of the day. The hot tub is
Mhm.
on, the sauna, and then they can get into the pond to have a swim. It's such a great feature.
Yeah. Yeah. So that all happened. That living environmentally friendly was actually maintained. That has remained the focus all of this time. It's like the people are also a focus, but they have the benefit of this environmentally friendly living. There's a group here, and there was two people that Douglas just told me about sitting at the pond, and they were saying this is a herbalist's paradise, right? Because of the variety of plants and bees and everything else that is allowed to grow here, or that is willing to grow here. So it's amazing. But another feature, and I
Chemical
will,
free.
yeah, totally chemical free, because the pond is also cleaned with plants. But another thing that, and Douglas was in charge of that, was the vegetable oil. And I want to say that the reason that I mention it is because this environmentally friendly living, we wanted to know when we started in the 80s, was it possible to live environmentally friendly? Is that actually something people can do? And once we've completed the vegetable oil thing, at least I proved to my satisfaction that yes, it is possible to live environmentally friendly, a very high standard of living, as in not I don't mean millionaire style, but a very comfortable way of living, with running water, with clean water, with electricity that you produce yourselves in a community, environmentally friendly, without a huge carbon footprint. And Douglas organized that. Go on, you tell
Okay,
that.
so Douglas, you tell. So you're talking about vegetable oil. So tell me how that came about, and
Well, I had been playing with solar panels for years, making electricity and storing. I had wind generators for years as well. But my I was still driving fossil fueled car, and I thought there must be an alternative to that. So when I started researching it, I found that there was a guy in Germany who was converting cars to run vegetable oil. So we got in touch with him, and I told a friend of mine about it who's on a similar path to ours. And the two of us drove to Bavaria, and we stayed down there, learned how to do it, did tours of all the vegetable oil factories down there, came back here, converted a car, and started getting the local farmers here to grow rapeseed oil.
Organically?
And we set up a small plant here crushing it. So we were making our own oil, and then we were giving the dry matter that's left over from crushing it back to the local cattle and so on. So that was grand. Then we started converting other people's cars, and suddenly we were on TV and on the radio, which I don't like at all, being interviewed. And the next thing, we had the customs and excise here.
yeah.
And that sort of finished off that little game.
And Douglas, just really quickly, were you generating electricity with the vegetable oil? So you had a generator.
I had a CHP system, which is a combined heat and power system, that ran off the vegetable oil. It centrally heated the house and made electricity.
And was that allowed, or?
Oh yeah, that's allowed. Yeah,
that's allowed. Okay, but you just
yeah.
couldn't run the motor cars.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
fabulous. Great story. I knew the story. Yeah. So okay. So then, tell me then how the retreat started, Marlene. The people coming to work.
Well, they started themselves. They just came, and then some people would say, "Would you mind providing food?" So I'd provide food for them, and then some people would say, "Well, can we stay? Can we stay the night?" And then people would stay in the house, as you say. Everybody in the attic or in other parts of the house, and then our attempt to have a little bit of privacy has developed all the rest.
So we're talking about the chalets and the little houses on the land. Yeah. Do you want to talk? How do they? I guess I probably know, but for the people, viewing and listening, how did they start coming about? Just as necessity arose.
Yes, so the yoga chalet was built out of necessity, and there was a little room here which we call the goat shed, which was the office of the mushroom farm here, right? So we had goats at the time, so they were in that office. But because of the disturbance and us having to have a presence here, we converted that room so that we could live in it. So there was one room for 4 people. So and because the goats were in there first, the name has stayed, right? So it's still the goat shed. And
Well, I heard there's a west wing, is there, or a north wing? I heard it's
now
the posh name. Yeah.
it's now the north wing room,
So
right? Because it's north facing. Yeah.
I tell all the guests, right, they're in the north wing, and then when they arrive, Douglas says, "Oh, you're in the goat shed." Yeah, and I can see that. I can see their faces.
Yeah, yeah. But that's right. But so that was the first one that was done. And then what was the next one?
No, then we got offered to buy the Oak Chalet.
Yes.
It was belonging to a friend of ours as a little office come shop. And we could buy it for a certain price if we dismantled it and moved it off the land by the following Monday. And this was Easter weekend.
Mm.
So between 4 or 5 of us, we spent the whole weekend dismantling it, bringing it up here, and laying it out on the patio there so that we could rebuild it.
Yeah, and that was in keeping with the environmentally friendliness of reusing something. But the other thing that I want to sort of say is that as soon as we started, right, technology came our way as well. We were like, it was literally a conspiracy of the universe. They brought people, they brought knowledge, they brought spiritual cleansing for the land, for all the disturbance that was here, because of the land was very sad. You know, sad is not a word. Traumatized. The land was traumatized because of the wars that had happened here. So there was soldiers who had died here, from British soldiers who had died here. There was women here looking for their children. There was loads of that traumatized stuff. But the people who could do something with that, help those souls that got stuck and release that trauma, also arrived. You know, the people, shamans arrived,
Yeah.
people who had access to that kind of healing arrived. The people that we were working closely with at the time could do that kind of work as well. So people volunteered to work here. Hundreds of volunteers came to help. You know, it was like a conspiracy to make this possible. We just the woman who was running the medicine circle at the time, you know, the medicine wheel thing, she said, they know what you want to do. You just have to stay very, very focused. That's your job. Very hard to do this. You know, it's relentless. It's very yeah.
Yeah, I know, because I like I've been up there, and when I come, I'm there for 8 nights at a time, right? And I can see, I know that Douglas runs a separate business, and I know what goes into running a business, and then on when he's back, he's going around filling fires, he's doing hot tubs. It's like endless work, right? For you guys, it's just it's yeah, it's a calling, right?
You run a separate business too.
Well, yeah, no, it is. It is a calling. You'd have to want to do this with your heart, with your soul. You have to want to do this, because if you don't want to do it with that quality, it's impossible. You'd wear yourself out.
Yeah. Yeah, so Marlene, also I'd like to talk about the food, right? Because your food is just incredible. I know
Thank you.
the effort that you put into it. I know the service that people get. How did that all come about? I know it's all organic. You just so much. Everybody does. When we're on a retreat, everybody just sits at the table. Everybody goes quiet when the food arrives. Yeah, so maybe you could talk about the food.
Well, the food, well, you know, the whole thing is inspired by this environmentally friendliness, right? So I'm definitely buying organic food, not just to keep everybody healthy, but I'm not paying anybody else to poison us. I mean, hello, no way, right? And there is no end to the way, if you're not careful, to the way big companies are willing to poison people. You only have to look at what happened to the mass population of the American people to see how far they will take it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's really important not to support them. So therefore, everything we buy here, as much as we can, we buy organic, local if possible, not local if not possible. But there is a huge effort put into that. That means that the price is also, but still, even if you buy organic, right, it's still not enough. A lot of people must still be working for very little money for us to be able to buy it. at the price we buy it, even though it's 3 times the price of ordinary food. Do you know? But anyway, organic, really important. And then what specifically I want to do, and I think it's to honor my mother. My mother was incredibly artistic and refined in the way she presented things. So that's what I want to do. I want to lay the table properly. I want to present the food properly. I want to have the water in the right glasses. You know, there is all that, but that's an honoring for my mother. And the other day we were doing a process here on the yoga weekend that we were doing. And the question was, why did you choose this incarnation? And the other person, so I say, I chose this incarnation for, and then the other person says, thank you. And you do that for 5 minutes and then you take, you swap. So I was doing that with somebody, and to my surprise, I was talking about environmentally friendly living, clean water, all of that. And then I chose this incarnation to honor my mother. I went, what? Like, I did not know that.
That just came
Right?
out.
That just came out. And the way I do things here is to honor my mother. She was a bit of a perfectionist, and I'm definitely not. But that quality, that looking for beauty in things, I definitely got that from her, and I want to maintain that. And it upsets me when it's not done. When people say, that's good enough. No, it's not good enough. That's definitely, that comes from her. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally get, and I can totally see the effort that goes into the meal times, the preparation, how it's presented, the quality of the food. I know everybody really appreciates it. They really, really do. Another thing that always stands out to me is that how you've kind of landscaped the place, right? It's not manicured. You've done it. And I know you have people who kind of work on it and do gardening, but you kind of do it in a way where it naturally grows, and you encourage like the nettles, right? And then you use the nettles quite a lot in the teas that are served.
Yes. Yes. The whole thing is to live, to live and to let live, right? So if it's not in the way, if it's really not in the way, if you leave it, don't do anything with it, because it's useful for somebody. Some insect will love it. Like, for instance, the ragwort, which is pulled up nearly everywhere. I think it's even legal, or you have to pull it up or something. But there is one moth that lives only on that plant. So if we all take it away, that's the end of that moth. And to my surprise again, and to my delight, there was one seen here 2 weeks ago. It's a beautiful moth, very red, and it can only live here because there is still that weed that people say it's a weed is still in abundance here, right? So it's not accidental. It's everything that is allowed to stay is staying. If you're not going to trip over it, it's here, and it helps the bees a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And from being there again, there's such a variety. Actually, on one of the retreats, we had a beekeeper from Texas who was there, and all he did was talk about the bees here in Ireland, and he couldn't believe
Yeah.
it, how many there were. And
Yes. And there is a bee nest in the cottage now. Do you know that?
oh, it was there when I lived there. Yeah.
Oh, well, what is it? Okay.
It
And
was
then
there.
the and then another bee set moved into the yoga chalet. We had to ask them to leave. We smoked them out because we couldn't leave them there. They were just everywhere. But a new set of bees has ended up on the platform over there on the upper deck. Yeah. So it's literally a paradise. Like, what is the guy around? Name's his land, Hidden Paradise.
Hidden Paradise. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's more or less what we try to do here as well. It's called Srina Bande, the way of the goddess, meaning the earth.
Yeah, and
To,
I wonder, can you talk a little bit about the name and even the gates, the beautiful mural you have painted on the gates, and
yes.
the fairy that you have on the way in, the goddess.
Oh, that, yes. Well, all of these things arrive here. They're not sought for. The person who painted the gates arrived and offered. in an exchange. The fairy that's here, she's the consort of, what's that very sexual goat? He's a god. Come on.
Don't know. No.
Anyway, she's his consort, and she arrived here as well. And yeah, by somebody who made her, and she was a druid. Yeah. So most of the things arrive here out of our control. Right? They are offered. They come in support. You know, it's very little actually happens intentionally, bar the environmentally friendliness.
Yeah, I know there was even one person on one of my retreats who would come and work on your land and work on
Yeah.
the water and the treatment.
Yes. Yeah. So, and that's been incredible, you know, that people want to, it's very hopeful for us at the planet, because there's a whole section that is going the other way. And then there is us and the people in Spain and all of that, maintaining something else, another quality, because another thing when I was thinking about the water in this interview, right? So we are treating the waste. We are not treating waste as waste. We're treating it so that it becomes useful for something else again, right? So we're maintaining the cycle, right? But in capitalist society, we are, as a people, and also the goods, reduced to waste all the time, right? Which is really annoying. You know, the waste demands that we produce is incredible. But now, in my opinion, because of artificial intelligence, even though it has huge advantages, has the capacity to reduce us to waste as well. Right? And that is something we have to be vigilant about, that we maintain our usefulness to each other.
Yeah.
Right? And we have here in Srina Bande been in an incredible symbiosis with our vision and all the people who came to help. Do you know? And all the people who came here to do retreats and everything. It's really it's a community effort.
Yeah.
Where nobody is wasted.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Marlene, also, I noticed when I walk through the land, there's you have the skeleton of a sweat lodge there, and I'm
Yes.
always intrigued. And I spoke to Douglas the last time, and he told me that you run the sweat lodges. Can you talk a little bit about the sweat lodges? I've done a sweat lodge before, and
yes, well, I haven't run one for a long time, but in the past we did them regularly, and that's another incredible story, right? And again, it's a story that involves Douglas. We were how will I say? The sweat lodge is a Native American healing ceremony, and when we started it, there was quite a few of the sweat lodges run, and the Native Americans actually did come themselves to run the sweat lodges, right? So we had really big names here of Native Americans who ran the sweat lodges like they were running them in America. Super hot, with lots of tradition, lots of ceremony, lots of everything. And then one day Douglas was asleep at the big tree, the one and only tree that was here, because we planted every other one. He was asleep, and he has a vision again of a Native American in full regalia, right? So he comes back up and he says, "Do you know what? I saw a Native American down the field." And I thought, Jesus, a Native American, why would he be here, right? And then I thought maybe he's looking after the sweat lodge, right? He's looking after that end, and he's here because of all the Native Americans that were here. So I forget about it. Douglas forgets about it. And then 15 years later or something, or 10 years ago now, but that would have been 15 years after the first sweats were happening here. This woman who was sleeping in the back chalet says, "Do you know what?" She says, "I've seen a Native American in that same spot, in the same regalia, but 15 years later." And she did not know that Douglas had seen that Native American in that spot looking after the sweat lodge. I thought, wow, that's incredible, right? That some people who have access can actually see what's going on here on the land. So for a long time, it was other people running the sweats. And then only when I was running them for my yoga weekends and so on, did I start doing it. But I do it with great respect to that tradition, and with, well, I can only say in great service to what the sweat lodges actually are capable of bringing about on a spiritual cleansing and healing. That's it.
Yeah, I would actually love to do one with you, Marlene, next time you do one. I'll come up and be part of it. Because
Yeah.
there's something very special. It's something, I know you have a sauna beside the hot tub, and I noticed that it's such a great way to finish the day. You know, you'll get 6 or 8 people all squeeze in there and sit and sweat together. It's really, yeah, it's very magical. It's,
Yes, but it's a very powerful healing tool, right? There is an Irish saying that says, "Be careful what you pray for, because the gods punish us by giving us what we want," right?
Mhm.
But that's absolutely true, right? The amount of prayers and touch wood and in fact, touch wood for everything both of us have said here, the amount of prayers that are heard in the sweat and actually manifest is uncanny.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it's very different than sitting in a hot tub.
It's very different from
Like
sitting in.
it's not relaxing.
No, I did one. I did one, and I swore to myself I'd never do another one.
It's hard work.
Yeah, it's very difficult. So I did it. I did one in, I think it was Ballinahinch or Tinahely down in Wicklow, and there was
Yes.
40 people in the sweat lodge. I did. It was a huge big frame, and I could only manage 2 rounds. It was 40 minutes, 10 minutes
Yeah.
out and back in, and I at the end of the second one, I said to myself, I cannot go back. I actually got heat stroke from it. I was thrown
Yeah.
up, my
Yeah.
vision was
Yeah.
going all funny.
Yes.
I swore I'd never do another one again.
Is
But
that with Big Heart? Was that run by Big Heart?
yes,
Yeah.
it was. Yeah, he does
Yeah.
them, I think twice every year. But I said I'd never
Yeah.
go back again.
Yeah.
Even though I had the most amazing day, I thought the whole ceremony was beautiful. How everybody helped, build the fire and bring the stones over. I thought it was really beautiful. But just I got heat stroke. It was too hot for me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I heard
Yeah.
you don't
Well,
do them as hot, Marlene.
no, I don't. No, no. To me, it's a prayer thing, and it's a community thing. When we do it here, it's because people come together, and the environment of the sweat lodge takes you out of your ordinary way of thinking, so you can relate and you talk from a different space. That's it. And you can be heard from a different space, and you can come out and go, right, I said that was my intent. The universe knows about it. So there we go. We'll wait for it to manifest now, and it does.
Yeah, and there's obviously something very powerful and special about the land you're on as well. There's a lady that's been on a number of my retreats, and she brings dowsing rods everywhere she goes, and she
Mm,
measures the energy. And she said
mm,
she measured the energy in the cottage and
mm,
up in Bande, and she said it was
mm.
off the charts.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's true.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that energy that was volatile before is now very much in support. That's why it's so healing here now.
Yeah, and you can really feel it. And I spoke about with this in last week's podcast with Ra, because he has a very similar place in Spain, and I could sense that there was just something, an energy on the land, and it's the same in Bande. There's something there.
Yes, that's exactly it. And as you said in the beginning, I don't know whether you said it before this interview or just we have the only thing we have to do is we have to take care. That's all. Take care. That's all.
Yeah, you're the caretakers of the land. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
it really seems that
Yeah,
way.
Keep
yeah.
the
Yeah.
land.
Yeah. So is there anything you feel I haven't asked that you would like to share? Is there any
No,
any
just well, what I would like to share is, I said it to you in the beginning, is how uncannily similar the trajectory of Ra and the trajectory of Srinavandi has been on every level, on every corner of the movements that he has made has happened here, like literally identical.
30 years? Yeah, it's like, yeah,
It's,
time.
when like, you know, the noticing that something has to happen. He noticed something has to happen. I noticed something has to happen. The thought that comes in like that, and then you go and do it, and then the first thing didn't happen. Like his first thing didn't happen, our first thing didn't happen. But then the second thing happens, right? That sort of, but also that continuous being guided, that continuous knowing that you're in service of something else that is bigger.
Why do you think that first thing doesn't seem to happen, right, for both of you? Like,
But because it wasn't the right place.
wasn't the
I
right
think
place.
I think we found it, and we thought we'll do it there, environmentally friendly in our little nook, right? Not exclude everybody else. But that wasn't what the universe had in mind.
Okay. Yeah.
It was like, you're doing this, but you're doing it for the greater good, you know.
So it was the right idea, but you just hadn't found the right spot because the
No,
universe had something much bigger.
much bigger. Yeah.
Wow, amazing story, amazing.
Mm.
So Marlene, I'm going to link to your website. If people want to find out, they can read all about the history of the place and what you do and the yoga retreats, because you run your own yoga retreats.
Yes, yes. Yeah. And people are very welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you're reluctant to talk about, you know, advertise or do anything like that, but yeah. So we'll link to the website anyway, and people can learn a
Yes.
bit more.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else before we finish?
No, just grateful to you, Gareth, because there is something about the groups you bring that bring a big, a good energy, and the land lifts. It starts to shine when you're around, and that is very noticeable. Yeah, I just want to say that it's very noticeable. It's very real.
He's always happy.
And Riley, it's very
I'm always happy when I'm there. Like, I mean, I spoke with this with Ra as well. It's like, you know, leading up to a retreat, especially a week-long retreat, people get, you know, ants in their pants. They want to know, the mind wants to have everything figured out for when they arrive. And I get all these questions coming in. And as soon as they land, you know, they sit down, they have a cup of tea, everything just starts to decompress for them, and you know, all the worries that they have just kind of disappear, and everything works.
Yes, but the quality of, there must be something that the people and the quality of the work that you do that is shiny. That's the only word that I can think of. It shines.
Yeah, it definitely is. But also, I always love how everything works out, right? It's like people, oh, you know, I'm leaving at 5 a.m. and someone will go, oh, I'll give you a lift. Everything just kind of flows, right? Nobody's ever left stuck, which is great. Yeah, it's great. The community is great. The people, great. Everything works just really well. Yeah. You've done a great job with the place, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And
so
so
it's been great having you on. I'm thrilled to finally get to hear the full story from you guys about how it all kind of evolved.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you to the viewers and listeners. Douglas, Marlene, thank you so much. Bye.
This has been the Endless Possibilities Podcast, where the journey of spiritual awakening and energy healing unfolds. Garrett is a lifelong seeker of truth, a spiritual teacher and author, and it's his passion to delve into the profound world of consciousness. We hope you've enjoyed the show, and we hope you've gotten something from it. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, the podcast is available on YouTube and all the major podcasting platforms. Find us on Instagram at _mother_force. Take care, and we'll see you soon on the Endless Possibilities Podcast.